こんにちは、あつです。今回はこの2つの違いについて動画を作っていこうと思います。I've lived in Japan for 3 years と I've been living in Japan for 3 years。はい。ね、この違いがあります。で、I've lived in Japan と I've been living in Japan。ね。I have been doing になってるか I have done になってるかの違いなんですけれども、皆さんはこの違い何だと思いますか？違いありますか？そもそもっていうところですね。で、私はこれまで中学校の時かなに一番最初に多分習ったと思うんですけれども、確か2つとも意味は一緒っていうふうに習ったと思うんですよね。で、そう習った人も結構いると思います。っていうのも I have done の形だったら、今まで過去から今までずっとで I have been doing だったら過去から今までずっと何々しているっていうことで、結局ずっとそこに住んでるっていう意味では一緒かなっていうふうに習ったと思うんですけど、実際どうなのかっていうところをちょっとネイティブの先生ですね、オンライン英会話のキャンブリの先生に今回聞いてみましたので、その様子をご覧ください。どうぞ。
Hi.
Hey, hi Atsu, hi.
How's it going?
Yeah, I've lost my voice slightly. I do apologize.
I was gonna say, catch a cold or what?
No, I went and watched some live music, and unfortunately, between my friend driving his Subaru very fast and his wind being open out in the windows, and yeah, and shouting over loud music,
Oh, right.
I'm paying the
Right.
consequences really. So,
That's all
not
right.
the best situation.
That's no problem.
Yeah.
Are you feeling better now? Is it
Yeah,
getting better?
getting, but I lost my voice completely on Saturday, so that
Oh,
was
no.
really unfortunate.
Did you
But
have
I'm getting,
any lessons on the day?
I know, luckily nothing on the weekends.
Oh,
Yeah,
beautiful.
well, very rarely somebody might request me, and so I try to not do the weekend just to recover, really. But
Yep.
yeah,
So today I've got a specific topic that I wanted to talk about. So it's a grammar question that I want to pick your brain about. So it's such a simple question, but I think there is some depth in it. So the difference between I've lived in Japan for 3 years versus I've been living in Japan for 3 years. And in a typical grammar class, a teacher would say that, okay, so these are exactly the same. You can use either like interchangeably, but like to me, this is just my personal opinion, and this might be just me, but when you say I've lived in Japan for 3 years, it feels like the emphasis is on the fact that the person has lived or the person has the experience of living in Japan for 3 years. And there is a bit of uncertainty as to whether the person is actually still living in Japan even now. Whereas when you say I've been living in Japan for 3 years, like it's very clear that the person is still living in Japan. So over the past 3 years, he has lived in Japan. But like, what are your thoughts? What's your take on this?
I was going to say, I actually completely agree with that. I think that when you say been, implies experience in a place. I think really that's what it would say to me. And so been, you've been there for a length of time. I do also agree that it could be used interchangeably, but it sort of speaks of experience. I think that's a simple answer to that. So I completely agree with what you were saying, and examples you gave were what I was going to say, in fact. So yeah.
So if you encounter somebody who says that I've lived in Japan for 3 years, is it very clear in your thought that, oh, okay, so this person is still living in Japan? Or is it kind of vague?
I think that sounds like they've had an experience there, but maybe not at length. That's what it would seem like to me. So perhaps they're not there right now, or they haven't considered to go back perhaps, but they have had previous experience. So yeah, that's a strange one. I'd say that if they said been, it would definitely imply a length of time.
Until now.
Yeah, until now. Yeah. So you're right. I think that it's one of those very, again, quite subtle differences in English. But you could use it interchangeably, but it would imply in my head that they've had a length of time there. Like, that was my thoughts on that. Yeah.
So if you want to make crystal clear that you're not living in Japan anymore, but you have this experience of living in Japan for a certain period of time. Would you want to say like maybe I had lived in Japan for 3 years? Does that sound more accurate or not really?
I think if you said that, that implies that, you know, you'd been there previously in this case, but you're not remaining there any longer. That would give me an impression if I heard that. But do you think for other people, they also feel this as well? Do you think they also, when they hear that grammatical question, I wonder what other people's response to that is. Have they said the same thing?
I actually haven't asked this question to anyone yet.
So we'll find out the consensus about that then.
Yeah, but like just my personal experience of immersion in the English environment kind of like makes me feel that now, you know, what I learned in a typical grammar class doesn't really fit very well in the practical environment. So like now that I think about it, actually, shouldn't that be always I've been living in Japan? Like if you want to say that you are still living in Japan and have this experience of 3 years. But like some people say that, you know, I've lived in Japan could mean that you are still living in Japan. So it's kind of ambiguous, you know, and maybe if you want to make it clear, like maybe you should just say, I lived in Japan for 3 years. Maybe that's the most straightforward.
It's really nice to see you again. Have a great evening or morning, I should say.
はい、ということで、いかがだったでしょうか。今回の会話の内容からは、I've lived in Japan と I've been living in Japan。で、この2つは、どっちも同じ意味をね、表すことできるんだけれども、I've lived in Japan だと、日本に住んだことがあるっていう経験かもしれないから、もしかしたら今住んでないかもっていうニュアンスになる可能性もあるっていうふうになりました。なので、今も住んでることをちゃんと言いたいんだったら、I've been living in Japan for 3 years の方が分かりやすいっていうことでしたね。なんですけれども、どうですか？皆さんの考え、もしありましたらコメント欄で教えてください。特にネイティブの方ですね。皆さん、どういうふうに、そういうふうに言われたら感じるのか、違いはあるのかっていうところ、ぜひシェアしてください。それではまた次の動画で皆さんお会いしましょう。バイバイ。